The Holy Gospel according to John, the first chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was Jahn. He came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him. Yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, or of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. And we have seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. John testified to him and cried out, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me ranks ahead of me, because he was before me.'" From his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It is God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known. The word of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Christ.
Please be seated. Let us pray. Oh God, your word came to us on the Christmas morning. Send your word to us now. And move among us. So open our ears, open our hearts, and open our minds to receive your word for us today. And so may the words of my mouth and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight. Amen. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. So begins the fourth Gospel, the Gospel of John. And these form the beginning phrase of what is known to scholars as the prologue to the Gospel of John. And this prologue, these first 18 verses which we just read now, is called the prologue because it serves as a prologue, even though it's not a separate section. And it basically serves to set up what is to come in the ensuing Gospel. Just as, the play Romeo and Juliet, the prologue sets the stage and tells people what is to come. Or just as in the movie Beauty and the Beast, telling a backstory, setting people up for what's expected. So does this prologue of the Gospel of John introduce the themes that are going to be developed throughout the Gospel, themes such as life and light, grace and truth, the Word and rebirth. These are all set forth, and they're going to be developed and weaved together in turn throughout the Gospel. This prologue is also important because it's a nice summary of the Gospel itself. And for those of us who, in our study of the Bible, can sometimes wonder who exactly Jesus is, or if others come to us with questions of, what do Christians believe who Jesus is? Turning to the beginning of the first chapter of John is a great cornerstone, touchstone that we and others can turn to. What does it say? It says that in the beginning was the Word. The Word who took on flesh to come among us as Jesus Christ was there in the beginning. As it's developed in Ephesians and Colossians and the book of Hebrews, Jesus the Christ was with the Father at the beginning. And just as in the first book of Genesis, when the Spirit of God moved over the waters, and God spoke, and all things came into existence, so the Word was there. And through the world, all things came to be. So just as Jesus, in this baby child of Nazareth, was fully human, just as you and I, so was this child also fully God from the beginning. So we can turn to Christ just as we turn to God or to the Spirit in all of our need and in all of our prayer. Particularly what came into being through this Christ was life. And Greek distinguishes between life that all animate beings possess. It's that quality of being alive. It distinguishes between that and being fully alive. And this is the sense that is used here in the prologue and throughout the Gospel of John, that it's not just merely to exist, but it is to be full of life, to be truly who we are made to be. And this is what has come into being through Jesus Christ. This power to be fully alive, to be fully who we're meant to be. Also, what has particularly come into being through Jesus is light. And as we talked a little bit about last Sunday, this light illumines our paths. It helps us to understand what our purpose is in this world. It helps us to understand and see clearly who God is and who we are. And yet as this word, as this light came into the world, not all people recognize it. Today, just as then, people don't always perceive God as God truly is. Even though Jesus came to his very own, those whom he created, some of them rejected him. As the word of truth reveals to us some things that are not so godly, as the light of God shines upon us and shows us who we truly are, some people reject that. It necessitates sometimes a change, a good change. It necessitates sometimes a letting go that can be painful. And people reject that. And just as they did when Jesus came, they put him on the cross. And for those who believe, who hear the word and call upon the name of Jesus, God gives the power to be transformed. And transformation is a very powerful word. It means to be something, to have a form that becomes something entirely different. God gives us the power to change into children of God, full of grace and of love and of humility and truth, after the image of God's first child, the only Son. In summary, what has happened? The Word has become flesh. The Word has dwelt among us. And the Word has revealed to us the glory and the grace and the truth of God. Though no one has ever seen God face to face, we can know God through this Jesus Christ of Nazareth. As each of us are beginning a new year, as we form some resolutions of what we want to be and what we want to accomplish in the year to come, make some space too for God. Give some room for the light of God, for the Word of God to move among us and to transform us how God wants us to be transformed, how God wants to make us new. So absolutely, do go forward with what we want, what we hope to achieve, and what we hope to change. But always remember that God has plans too. And God needs to transform us and make us after the image of His Son, Jesus Christ. And all God's people say,